What's up, y'all? Back again with another video. You know what it is. It's G-Easy Fades. Today we are doing a medium taper with a fringe. So getting right into this, we are starting off with our 3-guard, and we are going to use that as the foundation for this haircut. This is going to be our longest length. I do apologize for my camera angles today. I had to zoom out just a little bit more to ensure that you guys could see what I was doing, just because I wasn't really doing the best job staying out of frame. So that's my bad. But anyways, starting off with the 3, we are just debulking here, and we are leaving it a little bit darker towards the back of the crown. As you can see, he's got that little split there in the back, and so we want to be mindful of that. And so what we're going to do is we are going to drop the line of weight that starts the top a little bit more in the back, and that's going to give him a little bit more curvature to the profile on top. That's going to give him a little bit more shape, and I definitely recommend you do this for your clients that have straighter hair, just so you can keep really nice shape and you don't leave the back of their head looking super flat. So my lever is open, and I am starting flat against the head and just flicking out. After I do that, I am starting my fade portion of the haircut, and we are going from a 1 to a 3 open on the sides, and we are also doing a skin taper, a bit of a medium taper on his temple area, and a low taper in the back. And so I'm following that same shape that I established when I debulked, starting with my guideline, keeping it pretty low, keeping it just below his occipital bone in the back to preserve that shape. And I'm taking my guideline to the corner of his eyebrow on the sides there, so that way I can keep it consistent on both sides, and my fade is going to have consistent gradients, consistent height on either side of the fade, and I don't have to double check this area. So as you can see, we have this guideline pretty well established here, and now we are going in with our 2nd guard. I'm using a 2-guard open, and I'm flicking out into that area that I debulked in. I'm going up about 1 inch, and my goal here is not to remove any line. I simply want to remove the weight from the area where I established my 1 guideline. I'll remove a little bit of weight there, keep the darkness on the top as we get towards the parietal ridge, and lighten things up a little bit more. And so for the most part, my clipper is flat against the head, using a little bit of a flicking motion as I get towards the back, just to make sure I keep that shape really nice and clean. And with every few passes of my clipper, I am going to use my comb, make sure I reset the hair, and that way I know where the hair lives, I know how it responds, and I can cut it accordingly. His hair is super easy to fade, really soft, really nice. Honestly, a great model for this kind of haircut, because he has just a little bit of wave on top, and so that helps me style it super easily. And when I throw in some texture later on, when I cut the top, it starts to lay really nicely. My next step is going to be my 1 open, and I'm just cornering out that line in between my 1 and the 2 open there. I'm flicking out a lot more because I am preserving the shape, and I know that there's quite a lot of difference in length in between that one guard closed and the two guard open. And any weight, any heaviness that I still see above that line that I'm erasing, I can go ahead and take it out with my texturizing shears later. Next up, we are going ahead and tapering the back, and I'm not going in with my trimmers since I've already got my clippers out. I'm just going to go ahead, start with lever open, and then I will go underneath that point with my trimmers, and I'll start at the bottom, create a line, and make sure that the line in between the 0 and the half, or the lever open, is about an inch thick. And then I'll gradually start to open my lever as I flick out that bottom line. And once I do that, I can continue the taper just by closing up my 1, flicking out from there. And my final step for the taper is going to be just detailing out that bottom line, starting with my lever almost all the way open, using my half guard. I'm paying attention a little bit more to his growth patterns that I see here, just flicking it out. As you can see, I'm locked in here. I'm focused on the cut, and I'm being very careful that I'm very measured with my flicking motions, because I don't want to raise this fade. I simply want to erase that bottom line that I see. And as I flick out the guideline, as things start to lighten up a little bit more, I can go down on my lever and switch it to lever half open, and just use lever play for certain areas. I will go down to lever closed at the final portion of the haircut, just to make sure that a line is erased. But yeah, just using my corners here. As you can see, that area on the head, the occipital bone, is a little bit more tricky, and so I definitely recommend cornering that out a little bit more, just so you can lighten up that darkness in the center of the neck right there. Next up, I do a curved guideline with my trimmers, starting at the top of the ear and going to the bottom of the eyebrow. And that's going to be the foundation for my taper on the sides there. And that's going to also help me blend in the beard here. I'm not using my clipper lever open the same way I did on the back there, because I have to fade in the beard as well. And that is my reasoning for going in with the trimmers on the sides instead of just going in with lever open there. That always helps me be a little bit more precise when I am fading in a little bit of a tighter, more confined area. After I put in my guideline on the side there, I can go ahead and just fade the beard using my same steps for fading. Lever closed, and then as I move my way down the beard, I open it slightly and just start to use less and less pressure to fade it into the rest of the haircut. So it's pretty much the same steps, just in opposite order when you are fading in the beard. And when it's something simple like this, where I'm not really doing a beard trim, I'm just fading it in, this is the technique that I like to use right away as I get into the haircut, just so I get that knocked out and I don't have to go ahead and refade it once I finish the haircut out. My next step is, once I've finished the beard fade, I am going to go ahead and just detail it out a little bit more. I see some dark spots toward the ear, and then I will go in with my lever halfway open and erase that guideline in between the lever open and the one guard closed that I used previously. And I'm flicking out a lot more and using a lot more in my corners, especially on the front of his hairline, because I want to make sure that portion of the lineup is really sharp, and keeping it a little bit darker is going to help me with that. And so using my corners is going to help me get a really nice line on the front of the hairline and also above the ear too. But above the ear is naturally always a little bit darker, I find, when I'm doing tapers, because I don't really like to blend my tapers like above the ear too much. I like to keep them confined area from the front of the ear forward into that sideburn area. And as you can see, it's starting to come together really super nice. And so I always work one set at a time with my lineup. I'll square out the back of his beard and then go in with my neckline portion of the lineup. I'll hold his ear down very gently just to make sure I have some space to work, and that's going to help stretch out the skin a little bit more, and that's going to help me get a super clean line. And I can also use my trimmers really gently to line them up, and I don't have to use a lot of pressure. With the front of the hair, I always comb the fringe forward, comb the hair on the curve area of his hairline down just to make sure my lines are clean. I'll start at the top corner, and then I'll work my way down and try to get a little bit more of that half moon shape going on, which gives him a really nice finish to his taper. And once I've lined it up, I can also see if there are any imperfections in my blend too. A lot of the times, tapers don't look impressive, in my opinion, until you start to line up that front hairline, and then you can really start to see it come together. You can see the same process that I'm following on this side. I'm starting in his arch right here, starting at the top corner and establishing my top line, and then creating that half moon shape there. Then once I've done that and it looks pretty clean, looks the way I like it to look, then I can go ahead and finish out the rest of the lineup. As you can see, I take my time with this. I like to make sure that it's very precise and looks very clean, and I invite you to do the same as well when you are lining up, especially the front hairline. Just be super gentle, make sure your trimmers are zero gapped, and you'll end up with a super clean, super sharp result. On this side, I start with the front. I am right-handed, and so it's a little bit easier for me to start on the front part of the lineup above the ear, and then go from the back and work my way up to that point. On the back here, I will go ahead and look at that back lineup, make sure his bars in the back are in line with each other. I want to make sure that I have a consistent lineup on both sides. I want to make sure that my angles aren't off. And then once I do that, I can move into the final portion of the haircut, which is going to be the shear cutting on top. And so first off, I want to saturate my client's hair with some water, and I usually throw a little bit of hair tonic in my water too. It creates a nice experience for the client. It's something that smells nice in their hair, and it's also good for the hair too. Then once I do that, I'm going to comb it forward. I'm going to take sections, horizontal sections, starting at the back, and take out that overhang that's above that point. I want to comb the hair on the top a little bit forward because I know that my client is going to be styling it forward, and so that's really the way that I want to approach this. However my client wears his hair is however I want to cut his hair. As you can see here, I created a really small natural looking parting towards the front in his top recession area, and I will go ahead and cut everything that overhangs in that area, but I will not cut anything that I parted towards the front because I want to keep his fringe long. He is very particular that I just keep as much length as I possibly can on the top, and he still likes the blended length too, and so I kind of have to compromise a little bit and give him a mix of both. So we take a bit less than a half an inch off of the top, starting with a profile section here, and we are keeping it contoured to the shape of his head. I round out my section here in the front because I want to give him a nice layered look in the fringe area. And so once I do that, I will go in starting from the back. I will project the hair out until I start to see my guide that I created with my profile sectioning, and I will just take anything out that hangs past that point. And I start to get a little bit more squared out with my shape as I go towards the front, just to preserve a little bit more length in his fringe area, because he does like the textured fringe look. He likes some length to keep messy, kind of have that brush forward look. And so to help him do that, I want to make sure I preserve as much length as I can. And I am now going to do my finishing touches here. I'm going to point cut his hair, and I'm going to first go diagonal to his right side, and then I'll go diagonal to his left side, so that way he gets a lot more natural movement going on. And then lastly, I'll point cut the very front portion to make sure everything will look super soft, super natural, because as I said before, he likes the fringe look. He likes a little bit more of the fluffy hair look, as y'all on TikTok like to call it. And so point cutting here, and then keeping it very square on the edges there, but also making sure it's semi-blended. I will go ahead and just make sure it transitions into the blended length on the sides. And then I will detail it out with shear over comb, which is one of my favorite techniques to use in any haircut that you're keeping a little bit more length on the parietal ridge, because that helps you soften up that transition a lot more in a way that I think it's a lot harder to achieve if you are using clippers. It helps you get a really nice soft finish. It helps you leave a little bit more weight on that parietal area, and I think that's important because when you leave a little bit more weight on the parietal ridge area, you can have more bulk to support a lot more length on top. And so anytime someone is doing like an undercut where they like to brush it forward, or maybe it's look backward, for example, having more length towards the parietal ridge is going to help them support that length and make sure they don't look like Brad Pitt from Fury. Not that that's a bad hairstyle, it's just not a blended hairstyle, and it doesn't really have a ton of continuity to it. Lastly, addressing the crown area, there's a little bit more weight, and so I'm angling out my comb to preserve that shape there, and yet I'm still keeping some length around that pollock area just to make sure that it lays down super nicely. Now, as I finish this off, I'll go ahead and give it the final touches and take out a little bit of that weight there towards the area in between his front and his crown, because that is going to be my heaviest spot naturally. That's just how All right, we just got the smile of approval. Here's the before, and here is the after. If you guys like this, thought it was helpful, leave a comment below, like this video, and subscribe. Peace.